Alright guys, so today I am going to work more on the kitchen, and I'm going to first start with getting the rest of the ceiling down. And I already have lights up there. Remember, I have 2 can lights, and I found my box of the other 2. I have my wire, I have my box of staples. They're all over the place, so I'm trying to like put my eyes on them. And what I'm gonna do is work on the wiring that's up here. I'll show you guys in a second. And I'm gonna wire the 4 lights, and I'm gonna staple them to the ceiling so that they're in their general position, so that I can take the rest of the drop ceiling down, so we can then kind of start from the clearing out process. And then once I do that and clear that out, then my probable next step will be figuring out how to build my sink cabinet, because that needs to get moved in order for me to build my wall. So I need to have something that I can put my sink on, so that I have the ability to start building that wall behind it. So yeah, that's our first step. So come along and enjoy watching me work, I guess. Well, that was a lot easier to take down than I imagined, which I think it's funny when you think about the ceiling being suspended from these little itty bitty wires, and that was what it was. But what's funny is I kind of like the ceiling that's here. It's too bad that it's not in one piece, and this electric is obviously no good, which is why they ran the wires outside the wall. So would have made my life easier if this was a still working outlet, because then I could just put into here or whatnot, but I'll just go forward with my plan. So now I'm going to probably take the stuff off the side of the wall, because it's still there, and I need to now put these in their general position, and kind of not toenail them, the little electric staples up, so that they kind of stay where they're going to be, and that way I can kind of start to visualize what the ceiling's going to look like. Welcome to the floor with me, guys. So I had to change position to not doing the ceiling wiring, just because I didn't think about the fact that I can't hammer those little staples into drywall. They're not going to stay, and I don't want to put a bunch of stuff in the line of where I'm going to put stringers. So cap that for a second, but I did cut a length of wire that I need for the situation. So I turned my position to my cabinet situation. Most I need to start with the sink situation, because again, I can't build the wall behind it until I can move this. So I need to figure out what I'm going to do so I can make that happen. And sorry if the focus goes crazy. I'm trying my newer camera in video mode, so hopefully it tracks me without too much issue. So basically, I'm visual, you guys. And it's always important when you're doing cabinets, you got to be a little bit precise. And so measure 16 times, cut once. Good Lord, is it going to stay with me or what? There we go. Sorry. That's going to be annoying in the video. I don't know if I'm going to keep this clip if it keeps doing that. Let me take this off. Maybe that'll make it easier for it to see my face. So basically what I'm doing is I'm drawing not a realistic point of view at all, but just an idea of my measurements. So I'm gonna do 2x4 base. So that's a 3.5-inch piece of board. And sorry, I just realized I'm going to be looking at the side of the camera the whole time because I'm looking at myself in the thing to make sure I stay in focus. I'll try to not be confusing. So I'm going to do a 2x4 base for the cabinets to sit on because I have some 2x4s, and it will cut down a little bit of the waste that comes from the plywood because it's going to end up being where the toe kick is, so you don't see it, not a big deal. And the cabinets are all going to be against something, except for like on a couple spots, but those aren't the cabinets I'm cutting right now. So I'm trying to be smart about my plywood, which is 48 inches by 96 inches. So how much can I get out of those sheets? Always remember that when you are cutting, your blade has a width to it. So if I cut a 48-inch thing in half, it is not going to be a perfect 24 inches, right? So you have to remember that your blade width does take off some of the I want to say it's like 1/8 of an inch or something like that. It's not a big blade, but the point is you still have to be aware that when you are cutting stuff that you're intaking that information when you are making these drawings of how much a plywood board can do. I'm okay if I cut my 48 down in the half, so approximately 24 inches the width of a cabinet is going to be. That's a standard width for a cabinet, and standard height for a cabinet is somewhere, the cabinet itself, not with the countertop, the cabinet itself is 34.5, and then usually there's a countertop on top that makes it about 36 inches tall. So that's standard. So I'm going to keep everything pretty standard. So I'm going to do 3.5 inches for the toe kick. So keeping that in mind, that's where those 2x4s are. And so my whole cabinet tall needs to be 31 inches, and again, width is 24 inches. So I've got that I can use one full sheet of plywood to get 3 cabinet sides. So that's 6 pieces of cabinet sides, and I'll have approximately 3 inches left of waste. And it's not really waste because I'm going to use it as a back stringer on cabinets. That's 48 inches I can use in whatever capacity I need it to be. That's a really good, well-used sheet. And for me, some people are really good at planning stuff. I have to kind of plan and figure it out as I go. I can plan it out all day to Sunday, but then as soon as I start doing it, I'll figure something else out. I'll change my mind. And that's totally fine. So I'm a flexible planning person. So I'm starting out just with the one sheet, starting somewhere, and then I will account for the bottom of the base cabinets so that, you know, they're going to be 24 inches wide, the width of the cabinet, and then however long the cabinet's going to be. So for my sink cabinet, I want to allot a 34 inch sink. So I need it to be 35 inches so that there is enough of an overlap for the sink, because I'm going to do a drop-in sink, not an undermount, but one that just lays on top. So I need to account for that when I'm making these cabinets. Again, I'll try to show you guys when I'm at that piece to it. So I measured from my wall on this side to approximately where I'm going to have the stove. That's 90 inches. And then from the other wall to the stove is about 33 inches. So that gives me an idea of what I'm going to do for my cabinets on each side. So I got to kind of plan that out. For the 33 inch one, 24 inches of that is going to be cabinet, obviously, because it's a width of cabinet that's going to run this way. So then that leaves me 33 minus 24. Can you guess what that is, you guys? I believe it's 9. So, yep, that's 9. So, basic math, I don't have to write that down. For some reason, I thought I did. It's been a long morning already, you guys. Not even noon. I got up early. I was really happy. So anyway, so that's a 9-inch cabinet right next to the stove. And it's a smaller cabinet, but that is a standard size cabinet. I've been researching cabinets enough. 9 inches is small, but I'm going to do frameless cabinets. And when I get to that part of it, you'll see what I mean. This right here is a face frame, so you can see that where the doors and stuff would normally be. But what that does is it takes about an inch on each side away from what you can fit into the space. I mean, at least straight on. So I like the frameless because it uses less material. I don't have to create a face frame, and then I have more storage within the space because it's not cut through with, or cut out with the face frame. So 9 inches on the other side of the fridge, on the other side of the stove, and then I'll have cabinets that come this way. I got to measure how far that is. I haven't done that yet. For the cabinets that are going to meet the fridge. I haven't decided how far the fridge is going to go over just yet. So the question becomes, what do you do with that corner space? Like this space over here, I've seen corner cabinets, and maybe that 9 inches is part of my corner cabinet. I haven't decided. So I'm figuring that out. Maybe that's a corner cabinet, 9 inches, and then it's like a Lazy Susan in the corner, because the place is small, so I want to function with as much storage potential as possible. So to be determined if it's going to be a straight 9-inch cabinet or if it's going to be part of a corner piece, which I kind of like that idea. So maybe it's going to be a corner piece. Maybe I will figure out the Lazy Susan situation. Lazy Susan cabinets are expensive, guys. I mean, cabinets in general are, but then when you start getting fancy with them, with the storage idea, yeah. So anyway, so I know I got at least a 35-inch cabinet out of this side. Just paused for a quick second to do some math in my head and on the paper to give myself an idea of the span of cabinets going the long way here. Again, I'm not exactly sold yet what I'm doing on the corner sides, but again, if space is a commodity here, I feel like I'm going to do some version of a corner cabinet on both ends because I want to make sure I have access to that space. And I thought about the wall behind me. I'm going to do shallow pantry-esque type of shelving there. Or cabinets, whatever. So I think the deepest shelves at the top where the window is can only be about 12 inches, if that's even, that's stretching it. And then the bottom where the base cabinet is, I think I'm going to do 15, so I have a tiny bit more space coming this way, but it doesn't encroach on my kitchen floor plan too much. I think I'll do that. And so then not worried about what's in the middle here, but basically I'm going to have right by the stove a 12-inch, 35 inches, because this can only go so far over based on where my plumbing currently is. I can scooch it this way about 4 inches. It is not going to ever be centered on that window set, and I would have to literally replumb in the basement to get it moved over. Is that possible? Of course. It's actually not that hard. I would just take the plumbing out and then I would just move it over and then drill down through the floor. However, the middle of this window is so close to the wall over here. I mean, I would have no space for anything on this side if I had moved the kitchen over. So regardless of the window, I have to think about this regardless of how these windows are placed, because they're not centered. There's nothing equal about this room at all. So anyone who has OCD and things of that nature, please look away. Sorry, is what it is. So 12 inches, 35 inches, that leaves me approximately 31 more inches over here, which accounts for less than the 12, 15 that's out extra. So I haven't decided if that 31 potential is going to be, say, split into like an 18 and a 12, because again, if I do a corner unit, I'm not going to use 31 inches there. So I'll have some version of a smaller drawer, probably somewhere between 15 and 20 inches, and then I'll have the corner cabinet. Then I'll have a bank of stuff this way, because I want to store like coffee makers or not coffee makers, but appliances basically on this wall and covered in some way, because I want counter space. So I want to get things off the counter in cupboards if I can. And I've got electrical on this wall, so I can route some more outlets to make sure that if there's, appliances there, they've got somewhere to get plugged into. And then my whole wall up will be pantry, so that I have plenty of space for pantry items, because we lacked one and I built a makeshift one and it worked, but now I want to reclaim that space as a closet for the other room. So I'm going to end up closing up that door and then making this more officially a 3 doorway room instead of 4. So yeah, that's my basics. It just gibberish, guys, just so you guys can see it. I just write gibberish because that's what I'm organized chaos. So I'm just trying to pay attention to how many cabinets I think I'm going to have, so that when I'm creating the sides for these cabinets, I know how many I need. So I have at least 3 on this side, which is perfect because the first thing I'm cutting is going to give me 3 sides of a cabinet. So it'll give me most of this, and then I can figure out my banks for on this side. So I think maybe 2 plywood sheets are going to give me enough sides for all of my cabinets, for the lowers at least. And then we'll figure out the uppers once the lowers are done, because I got to take it one step at a time. That's just how my brain works. If I plan everything out, I wish I was as good as some people who draw these beautiful drawings and have everything listed, because then it's just like following instructions. But something about that, my brain doesn't like to jump that far, because there's always something that's going to change, and yes, you can change at that time, but then it kind of throws everything off. So I go in little bites. This is an elephant, right? This whole room is an elephant. So you got to do it one bite at a time. So again, if you've got OCD or you're super class A organized, I'm probably not the person to follow, but I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of the behind the scenes of where my brain goes on making this stuff. And yeah, I'm going to go cut some cabinet stuff up now. Okay, so I have changed my blade for my circular saw, and this is the plywood. It is on a layer of insulation so that I can cut across it without digging into the ground. I don't have a workshop, so this is kind of what I have to do. So anyway, I have my circular saw, and I love this. This is my Craig jig, and basically what it can do is you set the saw on here, you decide how wide you're making your cut, and then it guides here and goes down and keeps your cut straight. I wear my stuff out, so hopefully it still works perfectly fine, but I'm gonna put my saw back on there, and then we're gonna make our cuts. I think what I'm gonna do first is cut straight down the middle. So I've got my, I gotta be careful about that, because I don't want to cut the end piece because I want to be able to utilize it well. So maybe what I'll do first is side pieces, and then I can cut them all at the same time, or however, maybe I'll do it that way instead. I can't do it that way either. It only goes 24 inches. So if I have a 31 and a 35, I can't, or I'm sorry, 31 is the height, so I can't do that on this. So I'm gonna have to cut it straight down. And I have another thing that might be what I need. Let me go find it. Be right back. It's a clamp gauge, but it's also only 24 inches. Thought I had one that was bigger. I don't, probably. The other thing you can do, I do have clamps, but they're not, with it not being up on a table, the clamps are not going to be very helpful, is getting a straight piece of something and clamping it on each side of the board, and then using that as your runner. So I think maybe my first start will have to be, see, I try to, see what I mean? I try to be prepared. I try to think of everything I'm going to need to make my marks and to be ready to cut. And here I am going, where's my thing for this? Where's my thing for that? It's just how my brain works, guys. All right, I'll stop. I'm going to figure out what I need to do for my length, because I got to have something for the 31 inch. Like, I need a straight edge or something, so I got to figure that out. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, so I found my really long level. I'm going to use this as my straight edge. I'm going to make a couple of marks for my 31 so that I know where I can cut. And I'll start with these long cuts because I want to, again, anything that's small, this end piece is going to end up being a backer for my cabinets, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm trying to not waste. And if I cut it all the way down, then I have made that last piece 2/24s, and I may not need 24 inches, I may need 30 something inches. So I want to keep that full piece for my bigger cabinets. So. There's my first 31. So this right here, when I cut it in half, will be 2 sides to a cabinet. I'm going to do that 2 more times on here. So I'll cut first, then measure. Has a width to it. So when I cut this will be a perfect number. Here, it's not a hair line. It's like 1 inch or whatever. So I'll cut that first, and then I'll measure again for my next 31. Yep, that sounds right. There's my extra. So I'll use this for the back of the cabinet, and I can cut it down to whatever size I want. So this sheet will be used pretty much 100%, no issue. Okay, so you guys just kind of watched me break down plywood. So what's good about this is it shows you that you have the ability to not have a workshop, not have fancy tools, and you can still do things like cabinet making. These will not be perfect. I kind of showed you guys why the circular saw, even with all the little jigs and stuff, is just not going to be perfect. I have a table saw, but it is not configured well. It's an old used saw, so it does not cut straight either, and I don't have the supports to run a full board all the way through it. So this is what I do to make it work, and you just have to be meticulous with these type of tools because ultimately they're not going to be perfect. So you have to be a little extra careful with them to make sure, one, that you're being safe, goggles, earphones, making sure you're measuring everything so that it works out well. And then of course, once I get to actually installing them, I'm going to sand the edges, make sure that they're okay. And I'm going to pick for anything that might be showing, which nothing on these should because they're frameless, the nicest edges. So for instance, the straight edges will be my front. Anything that's kind of a little crookedy will be in the back. If I can, anything that is as straight as possible will be on the top versus things that will go on the bottom where you won't notice it. So I'm just keeping all those things in mind when I'm going to build these cabinets, and I'm going to assemble them with pocket holes. You guys will see me. I'm not doing many tutorials on these things right now. It's more just showing you guys my process. If anyone is looking for tutorials, one, let me know and I can work on making that video. But ultimately, there's a plethora, myriad, all the fancy big words for a lot of options to watch on YouTube that give you really great breakdowns of how to use these tools. So just want to show you what I'm doing. But now I have 3 sides for 3 of my cabinets. So in one way, I am halfway done with cabinets. I still obviously have to make the bottoms for them, and the stringers ties them in so it holds them together, and I still have to make the base. But I wanted to break down a sheet. Now I'm going to pay attention to what sheets I have next, to what sizes I need. So if I know my sink is going to be a 35-inch cabinet, then one of the next cuts I make will be a 35 length, 24 width, so that they match the width of these, but then they're long enough. And then I will make sure that I have stringers that are also 35 inches long, so that they will tie in the tops and the backs. But I can use that scrap piece, which is somewhere over here, to be one of those stringers for 35 inches, because there's more than enough of that in that material. So first thing is building this sink cabinet and going from there. Alright guys, so I did the cut, and this is why I wish I had a setup that I had an appropriate table saw, because when I'm cutting, I'm following the line so minutely in my face, in my mind. But you'll see, I'm going to show you, the blade still isn't cutting perfectly, especially not on the line, and I did everything the same. So why did it move over? I don't know, but let me show you this. You can see when I started, I wanted to make sure I was touching the line, and then as I went, it stopped hitting the line, but I didn't move the way I was going through the saw. So in some spots, this is now less than 31, which to be honest is fine, because when I put a countertop on top of it, it's going to be shimmed or whatever. You won't even know. But it does frustrate me, because then now I have less information here when I'm cutting this stuff. So it drives me crazy when that happens. So what I'll probably do is I'll use that other side to cut 31 inches, and then that way whatever happens is the last piece will have the most weird stuff to it, and it'll be my scrap piece. But that's the part that I don't like about circular saws, is it's hard to pay attention that you're staying on the line you want without getting a bunch of stuff in your eyes. So I have cut all of the pieces to the cabinet, bottom and 2 sides. What I'm going to do now is roll on some clear varnish. I'll probably do a couple coats because this is the sink cabinet, and one of the problems my current sink cabinet had had water damage, and so it just fell apart. So I want to make sure I give as much protection to this wood as possible so that if for anything leaks ever happen, it's a kitchen with water, will happen at some point in its life, that it will be well protected and less likely to have immediate damage. So that's what I'm going to do now, is roll on a few coats of the poly. Okay, so I have cut majority of my sink cabinet. I have put poly on it, 3 coats on the bottom, 2 on the sides. I have the stringer for it. I need more stringers, but the back stringer will give me a basic one until I create more. And then I have cut some 2x4 into my area of the toe kick. So at this point, I'm just needing to figure out if what I have here is too long for my stretch or if I'm in the right place, and then put it together so that I can put my cabinet together, and then I can start figuring out, it might be a tomorrow project, but disconnecting the hose and stuff from the faucet so I can switch out the cabinets and get rid of that last one that's gross. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I'll just kind of do my thing and you guys can just sit back and watch, I guess, right? If you're not bored yet. Hope you're not bored yet. I'm going to get my wood glue, got my Craig stuff, and I'm going to put this together. Square clamps to try to help me hold the corners in the right place. Keeping things square is a lot harder than you think. extra piece, like I said, cut it, put pocket holes in it, and now I can put it to the back so that it's a stringer for the back of the cabinet. So pocket holes are plenty strong, but when you're doing things like this, it's never bad to add wood glue, because that is really where a lot of the strength comes from. People don't realize how strong wood glue really is. So if you're doing pocket holes and you don't want something to come apart, add wood glue to that joint. It'll last you in the long run. When you're new to woodworking, you never have enough clamps, you never have enough hands, so you gotta be creative. Alright, so now that's a back support. I do need more supports on this, especially because it's going to be a sink cabinet, but this was what I had cut, and I wanted to get a basic idea, so, you know, I know where I'm at with this stuff, so onward. I have the best light coming in from this direction to show you guys. I have the toe kick set right here, which again, everything I'm working on is on the wall behind you, but for now it's just in the middle of my kitchen. So the toe kit goes here. It's just a 2x4 base, and then the cabinet is basically just the bottom, two sides, and then the stiles, which will help support it. But this is what it looks like. You put it on and see if you can see my foot. There is about a 3.5 toe kick, which is very comfortable. I have a couple different ones in my kitchen. The old version, which was very shallow, it didn't bother me, but when you start comparing having bigger feet for some people like my husband, a bigger toe kick might be more comfortable. So now this is set in its place. I can, you know, start working on emptying that cabinet out, just getting the junk out basically, and then switching this over to that side. That is ultimately what I'm going to try to do. Now there are some things I have to consider, which is water supply and plumbing supply that is currently in the cabinet. I am going to move the cabinet forward 3.5 inches, so it's possible I won't have to worry about the back of the water supply. It might end up in the wall, but the waste pipe, I've got to probably figure out where it's going to be, and then I'm going to cut a slot in my bottom so that it fits the waste pipe. And I'm going to actually have to cut my toe kick as well, so to fit it around it, and then I can patch it. This is not so structural that a cut in it was not going to be a big deal. And I can add more boards if I feel like there's not enough support underneath this. But this is with the glue and the pocket screws, and it is 3/4 plywood. It's a very strong cabinet, or it will be once I have all the sides. And again, when I said it's going to be frameless, that means this is the edge of where my cabinet doors are going to end up latched onto. So that's it for now, guys. Gotta clean up and see you around.